She marched straight to my boss's office, completely convinced she had caught me making a career-ending mistake. She was smiling, and I just sat at my desk and let her go. Because here's the thing about people who go looking for other people's errors. They tend to forget to check their own work first. This is the story of the day my coworker tried to throw me under the bus at the worst possible moment and ended up underneath it herself. If you have ever sat quietly at work while someone tried to make you look small and fantasized about the day the universe corrected itself, this one is for you. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and settle in. Because this story, it is deeply satisfying. Let me set the scene for you. I work in a very specific, very detail-oriented field. My team evaluates educational credentials from foreign countries. We read through academic programs completed overseas and write official reports determining how those qualifications compare to our country's standards. It sounds dry, I know. But stay with me, because the details here are everything. This work requires precision, not opinion, not gut feeling. You go by the requirements, you read the documents carefully, and you write what the evidence shows. There is no room for guesswork, and there is certainly no room for ego, which is exactly why what happened was so infuriating. Now, I want to be careful about how much I share, because some of my coworkers are on Reddit. Hello, by the way. Hope you enjoy this. But the broad strokes are this. I had completed a report on a candidate who had come through an educational program in another country. I assessed their qualifications carefully, cross-referenced everything against the program's requirements, and submitted my findings. Pretty standard. Just another Tuesday. And then she got involved. I'm going to call her Nadine, because I'm not going to use her real name, and because honestly, it feels fitting. Nadine was the kind of coworker who always seemed more interested in what was happening at other people's desks than at her own. She had this particular habit, one I'd noticed over many months, of hovering, of glancing over, of inserting herself into conversations where she hadn't been invited. She wasn't malicious in an obvious way. She was subtle about it, the kind of subtle that makes you question yourself. Was she genuinely trying to help? Was she just curious? Or was there something else going on? I had my suspicions, but I kept them to myself and kept doing my job. Then came the day she decided, apparently, that she had found something. I became aware of it the way you become aware of most things in an open office, through a shift in energy. She had been looking at something on her screen, and then she looked at me, and then she looked back at her screen, and I could feel it. That particular quality of attention that prickles the back of your neck. Then she came to my desk. She sat down across from me, didn't ask if I had a moment, just sat, and she started explaining in this careful, almost gentle voice that she thought I had made an error in my report. My stomach tightened. Even when you know you haven't done anything wrong, there is something deeply unsettling about being told you have. It activates something primal. A defensiveness, yes, but underneath it, a flicker of doubt. Did I miss something? Did I make a mistake? I asked her to elaborate. She explained her position. According to her reading, the candidate I had assessed should have received a different outcome. She had her own interpretation of how the report should have been written. And here is where I want you to pay close attention, because this is the part that matters. She was wrong. Not opinion wrong, not perspective wrong. Factually, documentably, clearly wrong. The program in question had specific entry requirements. 12 years of prior schooling before enrollment. The candidate I had assessed had only completed 10 years before entering the program. That gap was significant. It changed the entire evaluation, and I had accounted for it correctly. It was right there in the program documentation, the documentation that Nadine had apparently not read, or not read carefully enough. But I didn't say any of that. I looked at her, and something in me went very, very quiet. Because in that moment, I realized something. Nadine wasn't coming to me with a concern. If she had been genuinely worried about an error, she would have asked me a question. She would have said, "Hey, can you walk me through your reasoning here?" She would have given me the chance to explain. Instead, she came to me with a conclusion. She came to me already convinced. And the way she was speaking, that careful, gentle tone, it wasn't kindness. It was the tone of someone who believed they already had the upper hand. She wanted a reaction. She wanted me flustered, defensive, apologetic. She wanted something she could take somewhere. So I gave her nothing. I said something neutral, something like, "Thank you for flagging it. I'm confident in my assessment, but feel free to look into it further." And I watched something flicker across her face. Frustration, maybe, or confusion. She had expected more. She left my desk. And about 20 minutes later, 20 minutes in which I sat calmly doing my work because I knew, I heard her knock on our boss's office door. I did not look up from my screen. I heard the low murmur of conversation from behind the half-open door. I couldn't make out every word, but I caught the shape of it. She was making her case. She was explaining the situation. I was almost certain, framing herself as someone who had caught something important. The back of my neck was warm, my jaw was tight, but I kept my expression completely neutral, my eyes on my work, my fingers moving across my keyboard. Let her talk. What happened next took less than 5 minutes. I heard our boss's voice change and register, that subtle shift from attentive to confused. And then I heard a question being asked. Not the kind of question you ask when someone has brought you useful information. The kind you ask when you are trying to figure out why you're being told something. A few moments later, Nadine came out of the office. She didn't look at me. Our boss appeared in the doorway shortly after, glanced toward me briefly, and I want you to picture this clearly, turned back toward Nadine and asked her, in a tone that was politely but unmistakably direct, why she had been reviewing my work instead of focusing on her own. Not "thank you for bringing this up," not "let's look into this together." Why were you watching her work instead of doing yours? I heard it. I kept my face completely still. But inside, something that had been coiled tight for months quietly, completely released. Nadine murmured something. I don't know what. Then she sat back down at her desk. I didn't smile. I didn't look over. I didn't say a word. I simply continued doing my job, the job I had been doing correctly the entire time, and I let the silence settle like a warm blanket over the whole beautiful, perfect moment. That was it. That was the whole revenge. I did nothing, and it was everything. There's something people forget about quiet confidence. It is its own kind of armor. Nadine came to that office expecting to catch someone making a mistake. What she found instead was someone who knew their work well enough to let the truth speak for itself. You don't always need to argue. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply hold your ground, say nothing, and let the other person hand you your victory. If this story made you feel even a fraction of the satisfaction I felt writing it, smash that like button, leave a comment, and tell me, what is the most quietly satisfying moment of justice you have ever witnessed at work? Subscribe for more stories just like this one. Because karma, she is always watching. And sometimes she does not even need your help.